welcome to Procurement Pivots, the podcast for procurement professionals wanting to navigate change successfully and create career success on your own terms. I'm Donna Bowden, procurement career coach and founder of Narrate Your Career.
And I'm Laura Sellers, executive coach for procurement and founder of Coaching for Procurement. And between us, we bring almost 25 years of supporting and working with procurement professionals. And it's fair to say we've navigated many of our own career pivots along the way. And now we're here to help you do the same.
Each episode will share practical strategies, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you confidently tackle the changes and challenges in your procurement career.
Let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode on the Procurement Pivots podcast. Hello Laura.
Hey Donna, great to see you.
You too. Right, today we are diving straight in with a really important topic that comes up a lot in both of our conversations and the work that we do with senior procurement. And so we know that a lack of the right types of feedback in your career, particularly in your senior career in procurement, it can result, and we see it often, it can result in you kind of, suddenly kind of experiencing self-doubt. We've seen misalignment, with, individuals and the organisations that they're in, sometimes blind spots appearing. And so, actually, working in an environment where there is this really positive feedback loop can make such a positive difference to individuals in their procurement career. So we thought we would today just really kind of tackle that as a topic, really, tackle asking for feedback and receiving feedback, because it can just make a massive difference.
Yeah, great intro. And I think feedback in general, both giving and receiving feedback, is a tricky subject to navigate. And we will explore this when we go on to giving feedback in a different episode. But I also think it is possible to get to quite a senior level in your career without having had regular feedback. We obviously get it in our end of year reviews, if that's the setup that you have in your organization. But when it comes to actually being really clear on what you need to work on and what you need to develop with, I think you can go quite far in your career without knowing. And then unfortunately, I also believe that the higher you go in your career, the less feedback becomes available. It just stops, because anybody, as you become more senior, anybody working at a lower level or at a peer level will think, well, they don't need to know any feedback because they're already good. They've reached this level.
Yeah.
And at the top levels, in my experience, both personally and also from my clients, is that the feedback just isn't forthcoming as you get more senior. And sometimes it's when you most need it, because you are navigating leadership, which is not easy in a lot of cases. And so you need to know whether you're on the right track or not a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I think also, again, we've touched on this before, but the further up the ladder you climb, often the more isolating it can start to feel, because you've got less people around at your level that you can confide in. Sometimes, particularly if you're right at the top of the tree and you're reporting into non-procurement people, suddenly, actually, you don't always feel like you can open up, because you're maybe the leadership team that you're on, it's all non-procurement people, and do they really understand? And so I think when you look at that journey, it can become more lonely, less support. And so actually, in a way, you kind of need that feedback even more, because otherwise it can really, it can dent your self-confidence, I think, at times, when you just don't know the unknown.
I think it is really important to touch on those elements of self-doubt, confidence, self-belief, because you need to have that to be able to carry out your job effectively. And so you need to have the self-belief. In terms of self-doubt, we'd rather not have it, but it happens. It's a very human response. But I think not having that feedback loop, or not having that reassurance, for want of a better word, can also lead to huge decisions. In terms of, you might choose to leave a place feeling like you're not feeling valued. People might consider leaving procurement because there's this perception of procurement not being valued. Whereas actually, if we establish a very good mechanism or loop for getting feedback, both developmental feedback and positive feedback, that could help you go so much further in your career, but can also keep you motivated and on a career path that is going to serve you really well as
Mm.
well.
Oh, some really interesting topics in there. Like, you know, because I think, again, like a lot of the people that I work with, like, I think that feeling undervalued, unfortunately, right now, like, that's a really common feeling for procurement professionals. I'm not saying everyone feels that way, but a lot of people I talk to, they are feeling like their work is not being recognised, like they're undervalued. And I think this is such an interesting one because so many of those people that feel that way, they're not being given feedback, but they're also not asking for it. And
Mhm.
so sometimes that sense of, you know, I'm not recognised or, you know, I feel undervalued. It's like, is that fact or is that not? You know, the perception, I feel like I'm not valued, but actually some of the time they really are. It's
Mhm.
just not being communicated. And so, yeah, I think this is yeah, it's a fascinating topic. It's a really relevant and really important topic.
And
And
just to add to that, sorry,
good. No,
just
no,
to
you
add to
go.
that as well, like the thing about the perception, we know that the perception of procurement is a legacy thing, that it's an additional layer that procurement has to deal with as it
Mhm.
grows in its impact. However, it's important to recognize that this is a common thing for people outside of procurement as well. And sometimes people avoid giving feedback because they don't know how to. And again,
Mm,
we'll cover that in another topic. So that thing about not being valued, while it can suffer, it can appear because of this legacy perception of procurement, it's around bringing it back to what's within your control, which we talk about a lot of the time
yeah,
here. And about, well, if I'm not getting feedback, how am I asking for it? Am I asking the right people? Am I asking in the right moments?
yeah.
Because the day-to-day can overtake that as well. But it's really important to have that established feedback mechanism.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It is the mechanism. It's having the system or the process in place for yourself so that it almost does just become part of the way that you work, not very kind of, you know, ad hoc. I think actually it's working out like at what points and with what people do I want to be regularly kind of getting that two-way kind of feedback. But I mean, a lot of people are really uncomfortable with this, aren't they? A lot of people kind of they worry about, so if it's not forthcoming, that's really frustrating for a lot of people, but actually then they're very uncomfortable with asking for it. So do you see that in kind of the work that you do with procurement, that they're yeah, they're concerned about asking for feedback?
Yeah, totally. Because I think a golden rule of receiving feedback for me is being able to receive it objectively. And that
Yeah.
is very, very difficult when you're asking for personal feedback. And it's it people will always worry about perceptions, because what if you don't like the feedback? What if it does highlight a
Yeah.
blind spot that you didn't know? Or you only want the good feedback and you think that, I think the word feedback automatically brings a connotation of negative feedback. You know, like
Oh, that do you? That's
oh, I
interesting.
do. I do. I don't know. I think this is more from my time in-house, actually,
Right.
where when we talk about feedback, there's just this little bit of, oh,
Oh,
it's
we've
the,
had some feedback
yeah.
on it. In that tone. Is it?
Maybe, I mean, I take responsibility for my own perception of that. I think it's just the word feedback can attach so many connotations. And I think we've spoken about that with other topics we've
Mm,
covered in the podcast
yeah.
about the connotations that a word brings, and feedback is one of those things for me.
I think, yeah,
But
networking was
networking,
another,
that was the
definitely.
one. That was
Whoa.
the one. We should have a list, shouldn't we, of the words, of the words, so the ones that make people feel uncomfortable. But back to the point, like, to be able to ask for it knowing that both positive and developmental feedback is to
Yeah,
serve your development, both of
yeah,
them. You need
yeah,
and also this objectivity piece that I'm talking about, feedback, when it comes to recognition, there's recognition for doing and there's recognition for being.
yeah,
And a lot of the time, when we take on board feedback or we ask for feedback, even though there's a recognition for how somebody did something and how somebody is, we might automatically take it all on board as a recognition for being, like feedback for
yeah,
who we are. And
yeah,
it's not always about who we are, it's about what we do.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm gonna sorry, I'm going to go off on one more tangent on this because you can tell I'm
It's
getting a
not a
bit,
tangent, it's all relevant.
well,
Keep going.
it is. And now I'm going to lose my thread, but I'll try and get back on. Is just around that, the recognition for being and for doing. I often say to procurement, you need to separate you, the procurement professional, from procurement, the profession, because this perception of procurement is not a reflection on you, the procurement professional, the individual.
Yeah, yeah, that is such an important point. I mean, I think it's so interesting. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people are really uncomfortable with kind of asking for feedback, but I mean, I just think it's such a gift. And this is a phrase. I mean, I've had clients actually repeat it back to me because I think I say it quite often. It's a gift. Like, actually, yeah, positive feedback, if you allow yourself to hear it and see it and believe it, is a gift that you can then choose to do something with or not. Constructive feedback, if it is delivered constructively, is also amazing. And we've spoken about, like, yeah, career growth isn't going to happen when you're just always sat in your comfort zone. And so,
Yeah.
do you know what? Like, a lot of people, of course, they want to just have really positive feedback, but how do you then grow if you're not getting that feedback to understand how you can evolve and improve what you're doing? So, yeah, I mean, I personally think, yes, there might be some discomfort with it, but you're only going to grow with a bit of discomfort at times. But I think putting yourself in a situation where you are like systematically kind of asking the right people for feedback, I think is really key. And it can stop, like you say, like sometimes some really big career decisions are made because of that lack of feedback, and it just like snowballs, and the doubt creeps in, etc. And sometimes it can be avoided, by just knowing, and actually knowing factually where you stand on things with people, etc. So yeah, I think just thinking about kind of your own career and the feedback that you are or aren't getting. I think just trying to identify where are those feedback kind of gaps at the moment. What parts of your career are you getting the feedback? Like, for some people it might be actually systematically, at the end of every project they are getting feedback from the business, but actually when it comes to their own professional development, from their boss, they're not getting it. And I've heard some horror stories recently of like people starting in new leadership roles. I've heard some absolute shockers starting in a leadership role and having no time at all with their new boss. So there's no feedback, there's nothing, like no interaction at all.
Wow.
For months and months and months, like, and requesting it. And that obviously is not acceptable. Like, it's not acceptable to bring someone new into your organisation and not provide them with basic minimum levels of communication and support. And so, I think that highlights often, something that you know, is is inherently wrong with an environment. Like, if you can't get time regularly despite asking with your boss, I think that is a problem for me, a big problem.
Yeah, totally agree. And you said something earlier that made me think about something else around feedback, because there's having the courage to ask for it, and
Yeah,
there's the objectivity you need to attach to
yeah,
it that we've covered. And then you went on to say around the who and the where. I think this is the other thing. Asking for feedback from the right people who are going to give you that right mix of the positive and the not. It's like
yeah,
when, I don't know if any of your clients do 360s, but we've done them
yeah,
in-house, and then
yeah,
and I have that with some of my clients. And when you are choosing those people to do the 360
yeah,
on you, if you go for the safe people who you
yeah,
know are only going to
yeah,
give you good feedback, you already know that they think highly of you. So it's good to
yeah.
get a mix, but you also need feedback from the others that you find
Mm,
challenging.
yeah, that's such a
It,
good point. Yeah,
well, I mean, you've got to be, what's the point? I honestly think, what's the
yeah,
point in just asking people that you know already think highly of you, because you're not going to learn anything new,
yeah,
right? And you need the reassurance of good
yeah,
feedback, but if you're already getting it from them,
Yeah.
then you're doing yourself a massive disservice. I got some feedback the other day from someone that I'm working with, not a client, I'm
Yeah.
the client, and they gave me a piece of feedback. It was enlightening. It was like, oh my word, I've never had that feedback before. And now that you've mentioned it to me, I can see where that might have shown up
Mm.
elsewhere. It was brilliant. And I think sometimes the blind spots, once you've been
Yeah.
enlightened to them,
Yeah.
it gives you such massive clues, and also, for want of a better word, pivot for how you
Yeah.
can pivot an approach.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious now what your feedback was, but I'm not going to ask you to
I
share it publicly.
it was it was nothing negative. It was just around something that I'm doing in terms of communication,
Right.
and so I, it's languages related. So like, yeah, I was yeah. So now it sounds even more vague, but it was a really valuable piece of
Yeah.
feedback. It wasn't negative, it wasn't positive, it was an observation. And I
Yeah.
think that's the other thing, is that treat these as observations, because again, everybody brings their own perception and own lens into a
Mm.
situation. So when we talk about communication styles, for somebody who likes a lot of detail and they're dealing with somebody who doesn't like detail at all, there's an immediate clash there. So
Yeah.
it's also, like I say, looking at it with objectivity, but you need to have a good mix of who you're asking.
Yeah. And it's interesting because actually, I've seen a lot of those 360-degree reviews. I've done it myself. And actually in some businesses, I've seen some businesses where the individual doesn't get to choose
Oh,
where the business goes out. So it's completely like, I don't know, like random, I think, in terms of who is selected. And that's quite interesting. But yeah, I think that is a really great point around, don't just go to where you're going to get glowing feedback, and do go to those people as well, because that's really good confidence boosting, and that can help, with your storytelling and credibility when you're talking to people, stakeholders, etc. But yeah, I think, where there are maybe some sort of, maybe challenges, like that's just such a great opportunity to kind of ask, like, how can we improve this? Like, what's your view on how we can improve this situation going forward? What could I do
absolutely.
differently? So the other thing, when you just said about the 360 as well, I feel like maybe I've spoken about this on here before, but um, I work with my clients, and we talk a lot about social proof. So a lot of the work I'm doing is helping them with their positioning internally, externally. And, we're living in an age now where, most people don't even book a restaurant without reading reviews. And I had it the other day. We were looking to book a weekend away, and we found two places on booking.com it was that we were deciding between. One of them had one rating, but it was a 10 out of 10. And the other one had like 47, I think it was. And it was overall a 9.5, which is lower, but it's like, actually, like, you feel more reassured when more people have given kind of a positive review. And so I think it's the same nowadays with careers. So where that was a slight tangent, but the 360 piece. So when I'm working with my clients to kind of help them to build their positioning strategy, their visibility strategy, one of the things we're looking at on LinkedIn, for instance, is their recommendations, and actually, mirroring a 360-degree review on your public recommendations is such a positive thing to do. So if you can, not just be asking for that feedback in the background, but actually think about who could you ask that would be willing to give you feedback publicly. Because nowadays, like, there's loads of changes to how companies hire and recruit. And these days, most companies refuse to give a detailed recommendation or
Yeah.
reference, not recommendation, reference. So, in most cases, because companies are so kind of worried about, saying the wrong thing and it resulting in some sort of legal action, like most businesses will only ever now state, did you leave under any sort of cloud or disciplinary action, and dates of employment, they'll confirm your job title. So, from a hiring perspective, um, like, and it's not just about hiring, but it can be so reassuring if people see that you've got this kind of 360 group of people, some of your bosses, some of your stakeholders, some of your peers, some of your team members, maybe even some of your suppliers that are saying some really positive but constructive stuff about you publicly. Like that just gives such peace of mind. And as I said, it's not just about hiring. Like imagine you're recruiting into your team and you know an amazing person considering joining you, if they're considering joining you or another business, if they're looking at you as the leader and they're seeing how you communicate online and they're also seeing what lots of other people have said about you and team members, etc. Like it's really reassuring for people making that decision. Like actually, I am joining not just the right business, but the right person within the business as well. So, yeah, I am a massive, massive, massive fan of kind of building your kind of public social proof as well, in the form of recommendations, because it can make a massive difference. It can even make a difference, like when it comes to being like a client of choice for an amazing supplier. Actually, they want to work with businesses that are going to be like, easy-ish to work with and are going to treat them well. And so actually, they're more likely to be more willing, I think, to negotiate if they know they're working with a business that's going to partner with them in the way that they want to work.
Exactly that. And social proof is also a huge thing that I talk about in teamwork as well, because when they're talking about building their credibility across the organization, it's really useful to be able to have that feedback and that experience that others have of working with you. So
Yeah,
yes, that can be on LinkedIn, but it's also around the way that they position their presentations and the
totally.
way that they communicate and storytell
Yeah.
internally in the business. So it's multi-purpose, this feedback subject, isn't it? It's for
Yeah.
you as an individual. It can also be used as a team as well. And I think as well, other than the social proof, there's this thing around the patterns that that the feedback, that if you're constantly getting and asking for the feedback, what patterns are you spotting? Because when it comes to the what are you known for, what are your strengths, when it comes to whatever you choose to do next, that's also incredibly valuable.
Yeah. And again, on that, I think actually once you are starting to collate this, like almost like collection of feedback, this is where AI can be really helpful as well. Like it can save you a lot of time. And I always say, like, caveat it and say, make sure you don't put anything sensitive in there, take people's names out. But like actually getting those themes and patterns that are recurring, that can be really positive as part of your kind of career storytelling as well. I am known for. I repeatedly get feedback from C-suite that says that I am XYZ. Like that's really impactful. And you've then got the proof of it as well. It's not just you saying I am these three things. It's
Yeah.
it's the people that have experienced you saying it. So key takeaways then today. What do you think?
Oh, there's so much. Like I say, we could have delved in. I think around the being strategic about the feedback and being objective, having the objectivity around the getting the good mix, because you do need the reassuring positive feedback to make sure that to reassure you that you're on the right path, but also that the feedback that's going to open up a blind spot to you, which could be game changing for your career.
Hmm. Yeah, I think for me, like maybe it's like just almost doing like a feedback loop audit of your own
Mm.
situation and understand, like we've said before, like where are the gaps? So like where are you getting good feed? Not where are you getting feedback, regardless as to what the feedback is, first of all, but then, where are the gaps? Where are the blind spots where you don't know actually what that other person is experiencing or feeling. So I think it's like just identify where it would be beneficial for you to actually start getting some feedback.
Yeah, brilliant. And there's definitely a lot to go out there, isn't it? I think overall, what we're saying is make this a regular part of your career conversations, because it's not just for end of year reviews. It's not just for when you're changing roles or organizations. Make sure you are establishing a pattern and a habit of asking
Mhm.
for feedback.
Yeah. And I've seen some people that have really been struggling with their confidence levels
Mm.
apply this And over time, like, this has been one of the main things that's really helped them to kind of see themselves differently, see themselves actually how others see them,
Yes.
which is quite different to how they think others see them. And it can, this one area alone could make a huge difference to many people's careers, actually. And I've seen it, I've seen people really, they've almost become a very, very different version of themselves over, like, not years, like months, weeks sometimes.
Yeah.
It can really, it can change such a lot.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think once we get people, I mean, we call it in coaching like holding the mirror up as well, don't we? That once we get people to see themselves in a different light through other things like social proof as
Yeah.
well, it can really be game changing for their impact in their career.
Yeah, definitely. Great. Well, a topic like all of them that we'll talk about for hours, no doubt. But hopefully that's been valuable for all of you tuning in. We're loving bringing these episodes to you. So, as Laura alluded to, I think there will be a future episode on, how you can actually give feedback positively. So we will come to that at a later date. But if you've got any questions on this subject, like always, feel free to reach out to us, and we will see you next week.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Procurement Pivots. We hope today's episode gave you actionable tips to help you to continue to move forward in your procurement career.
If you enjoyed the conversation, follow our episodes, share them with others, and please support us on our social media channels for others that might be interested to tune in.